Sorcery by Terry Pratchett. Page 4. After some minutes, its search led to Waygoose's room. The air was full of greasy coils. Little particles of soot drifted gently on the air currents, and there were several foot-shaped burn marks on the floor. The figure shrugged. There was no accounting for this sort of things. You found in a wizard's room. It caught sight of its multifaceted reflection in a shattered mirror, adjusted the set of its hood, and got on with the search. Moving like one listening to inner directions, it padded noiselessly across the room until it reached the table whereon stood a tall, round, and battered leather box. It crept closer, and gently raised the lid. The voice from inside sounded as though it was talking to you through several layers of carpet. When it said, at last,
"What kept you?"
I mean, how did they all get started? I mean, back in the old times, there were real wizards. There was none of this levels business. They just went out and did it. Pow! One or two of the other customers in the darkened bar of the Mender Drum Tavern looked around hastily at the noise. They were new in town. Regular customers never took any notice of surprising noises like groans or unpleasantly grisly sounds. It was a lot healthier. In some parts of the city, curiosity didn't just kill the cat, it threw it in the river with lead weights tied to its feet. Rincewind's hands weaved unsteadily over an array of empty glasses in front of him. He'd almost forgot about the cockroaches. Another drink, he might manage to forget about the mattress, too. Whee! A fireball fizz! Vanishing like smoke. Whee! Sorry. The librarian carefully pulled what remained of his beer out of the reach of Rincewind's failing arms. Proper magic! Rincewind stifled a belch. Oak! Rincewind stared into the frothy remains of his last beer, and then with extreme care, in case the top of his head fell off, leaned down and poured some into a saucer for the luggage. It was lurking under the table, which was a relief. It usually embarrassed him in bars by sidling up to drinkers and terrorizing them into feeding it crisps. He wondered fuzzily whether his train of thought had been derailed. Where was I? Said the librarian, hinted. Yeah, Rincewind brightened. They didn't have all these levels and grade business, you know. They had sorcerers in those days. They went out into the world and found new spells and had adventures. He dipped a finger in a puddle of beer and doodled a design on the stained, scratched timber of the table. One of Rincewind's tutors had said to him that to call his understanding of medical theory abysmal is to leave no suitable word to describe his grasp of its practice. This had always puzzled him. He objected to the fact that you had to be good at magic to be a wizard. He knew he was a wizard deep in his head. Being good at magic didn't have anything to do with it. That was just extra. It didn't actually define somebody. When I was a little boy, he said wistfully, I saw this picture of a sorcerer in a book. He was standing on a mountaintop, waving his arms, and the waves were coming right up, you know, like they do down in Ankh-Morpork in the gale. And there were flashes of lightning all around him. Ook. I don't know why they did. Perhaps he had rubber boots on. Rincewind snapped and went on dreamily. And he had his staff and a hat on, just like mine. And his eyes were sort of glowing. And there was all sorts of glitter coming out of his fingertips. I thought one day I'd do that, and Ook. Just half then. Look, how do you even pay for this stuff? Every time anyone gives you any money, you eat it. Look, amazing. Rincewind completed his sketch in the beer. There was a stick figure on a cliff. It didn't much look like him. Drawing in stale beer is not a precise art, but it was meant to be. That's all I want to be, he said. Pow! None of this messing around, all this books and stuff. It's what it should be all about. What we need is a real wizardry. The last remark would have earned the prize for the day's most erroneous statement if Rincewind hadn't have said it. The last remark would have earned the prize for the day's most erroneous statement if Rincewind hadn't said this. There isn't that there aren't any of them around anymore. Spelter rapped on the table with his spoon. He was an impressive figure in his ceremonial robe with the purple and vermin hood of the venerable Council of Seers and the yellow stash of the 5th level wizard. He'd been 5th level for 3 years, waiting for one of the 64 6th level wizards to create a vacancy by dropping dead. He was in an amiable mood. However, not only had he just finished a good dinner, he had also in his quarters a small vial of guaranteed unsustainable poison, which, used correctly, should guarantee him promotion within a few months. Life looked good. The 3 big clocks at the end of the hall trembled on the verge of 9 o'clock. The tattoo with the spoon hadn't had much effect. Spelter picked up a pewter tankard and brought it down hard. "Brothers!" he shouted, and nodded as the hubbub died away.
Thank you. Be upstanding, please, for the ceremony of the keys.
There was a ripple of laughter and a general buzz of expectancy as the wizards pushed back their benches and got unsteadily to their feet. The double doors of the hall were locked and triple barred. An incoming Arch-Chancellor had to request entry 3 times before it would be unlocked, signifying that he was appointed with the consent of wizardry in general, or some such thing. The origins were lost in the depths of time, which was good reason as any for retaining the custom. The conversation died away. The assembly of wizardry stared at the doors. There was a soft knocking. Go away! Shouted the wizards, some of them collapsing at sheer subtlety of the humour. Spelter picked up the great iron ring that contained the keys of the university. They weren't all metal. They weren't all visible. Some of them looked very strange indeed.
Who is that who knocketh without?
He intoned. I do. What was strange about the voice was this. It seemed to every wizard that the speaker was standing right behind them. Most of them found themselves looking over their shoulders. In that moment of shocked silence, there was a sharp little snick of the lock. They watched in fascinated horror as the iron bolts travelled back of their own accord. The great oak bulks of the timber turned by time into something tougher than rock, slid out of their sockets. The hinges flared from red through yellow to white, and then exploded. Slowly, with terrible inevitability, the doors fell into the hall. There was an indistinct figure standing in the smoke from the burning hinges.
Bloody hell, Vivid,
said one of the wizards nearby. That was a good one. As the figure strode into the light, they could see that it was not, after all, Virid Waysgoose. He was, at least, a head shorter than any other wizard, and wore a simple white robe. He was also several decades younger. He looked about 10 years old, and in one hand he held a staff considerably taller than he was.
He's no wizard. Where's his hood, then? Where's his hat?
The stranger walked up the line of astonished wizards until he was standing in front of the table. Spelter looked down at the thin young face, framed by a mass of blonde hair, and most of all, he looked into 2 golden eyes that glowed from within. But he felt they weren't quite looking at him. They seemed to be looking at a point 6 inches beyond the back of his head. Spelter got the impression that he was in the way and considerably surplus to the immediate requirements. He rallied his dignity and pulled himself up to his full height.
What is the meaning of this?
He said. It was pretty weak, he had to admit, but the steadiness of that incandescent glare appeared to be stripping all the words out of his memory. I have come, said the stranger.
Come? What for?
To take my place. Where is the seat for me?
Are you a student?
demanded Spelter with anger.
What is your name, young man?
The boy ignored him and looked around the assembled wizards. Who is the most powerful wizard here? He said. I wish to meet him. Spelter nodded his head. Two of the college porters, who had been sidling towards the newcomer for the last few minutes, appeared at either elbow.
Take him out and throw him in the street,
said Spelter. The porters, being solid, serious men, nodded. They gripped the boy's pipe-stream arms with hand-like banana bunches.
Your father will hear of this,
said Spelter severely. He already has, said the boy. He glanced up at the two men and shrugged. What's going on here? Spelter turned to see Skamar Billeyes, head of the Order of the Silver Star, whereas Spelter tended towards the wiry. Billeyes was expansive, looking rather like a small captive balloon that had for some reason been draped in blue velvet and vermin. Between them, the wizards averaged about 2 normal-sized men. Unfortunately, Billeyes was the type of person who prided himself on being good with children. He bent down, and as far as his dinner would allow, and thrust his whisky-red face towards the boy.
What's the matter, lad?
He said.
This child forced his way into here because he says he wants to meet the most powerful wizard,
said Spelter disapprovingly. Spelter disliked children intensely, which was perhaps why they found him so fascinating. At the moment, he was successfully preventing himself from wondering about the door.
Nothing wrong with that, said Billeyes. Any lad worth his salt wants to be a wizard. I wanted to be a wizard when I was a lad. Isn't that right, lad?
Are you puissant? Said the boy. I said, are you puissant? How powerful are you?
Powerful?
said Billeyes. He stood up, fingered his 8th level sash, and winked at Spelter.
Oh, pretty powerful. Quite powerful as wizards go.
Good. I challenge you. Show me your strongest magic. And when I have beaten you, why, then I shall be Arch-Chancellor.
Why, you impotent,
began Spelter, but his protest was lost in the roar of laughter from the rest of the wizards. Billeyes slapped his knees, or as near as he could get them.
A duel,
he said. Pretty good,
Dueling is forbidden, as well you know,
said Spelter.
Anyway, it's totally ridiculous. I don't know who did the doors for him, but I shall not stand here and waste our time.
Now, said Billeyes. What's your name, lad? Coin.
Coin, sir,
snapped Spelter. Well now, Coin, said Billeyes. You want to see the best I can do, eh?